What's going on? Welcome to the Staff Meeting Podcast. So it's about myself, George Adams, and Dan Mullins. This podcast is built for coaches who care about running more effective and efficient programs. It's not going to be an echo chamber. Each episode is a real conversation where we talk about training, leadership, systems, decisions that actually move the needle in the weight room and on the field. Sometimes it'll just be me and Dan. Ideas getting floated out, what we think, and kind of the way we structure our stuff. Sometimes we'll bring in high level guests and coaches from all over the industry, but the goal is always the same, and that's to provide practical insight you can actually use and thoughts that might make you think deeply about what you believe. This isn't hot takes, this isn't inflammatory. This is going to be, hopefully, what you hear in a staff meeting, at least by mine and Dan's standards. So, staff meeting is powered by Kleros, a coach built platform designed to help you simplify your programming, organize your data, and spend more time coaching instead of viewing numbers. All right, let's roll. Welcome to episode 1 of Staff Meeting Podcast with me, George Adams, and Dan Mullins. This is, kind of just more of a brainchild of talking and seeing what sticks on the wall more than anything. So this is just going to be kind of a how do we get here? What do we see the podcast doing? Who is it for? Make it on a couple soapboxes and rants. But first, Dan, appreciate it. Appreciate Kleros sponsoring us, empowering us, and to get this thing rolling. And then just kind of dive in. Who is Dr. Dan Mullins?
Yeah, man. No, this has been something, we've been talking about and kicking back and forth a little bit. So I'm excited that we can actually make it happen. We're constantly calling each other, talking about training, talking about the stuff that we're going through, we're experiencing in life, whether it's professional and personal. So we figured might as well just kind of start recording, and that way we can keep a digital library of all of it, and maybe who knows, it might help somebody down the road. But yeah, we're kicking this thing off right now, and as like you said, as a brainchild of a lot of different thoughts. I think I speak for both of us when I say that I have crazy ADHD, and I know you do too. So this is like the best way to streamline our thoughts, and we'll get to the point where we'll have guests on, and we've got a huge list, and it's going to be awesome. But this one is really for us to just kind of talk shop and get rolling.
For sure. And Dan, you want to go in kind of where you're at right now, kind of what you're leaning on, things like that.
Told you, man, the ADHD is hitting already. Yeah, so I'm at Cartersville High School, Cartersville Middle School. Work mostly with our middle school athletes, and work with football a little bit here in Cartersville, Georgia. This is just wrapping up season number 1 here. Been a couple different places here in Georgia. Was also at the University of Cincinnati for an internship back in 2020. As they were getting ready for the college football playoff, and then was a high school coach up there. I coach football and coach track now. I've done everything up to defensive coordinator, kind of been all over the place, but my love is football. My aspirations are to be a head football coach somewhere here in the state of Georgia. I just love football, man. And I love the life lessons that you can learn from it, the training, the dedication it takes to be prepared at a high level. So my brain is constantly thinking of like improving team culture, improving practice and preparation as a whole, not necessarily like just our weight room as far as like how we get bigger, faster, stronger, but really that all-encompassing piece to it. I just finished my PhD in exercise science back in July with a specialty in VBT for my dissertation and the application of VBT versus percent-based training. Longtime power lifter before that, highly mediocre at that and at sports. So like I'm not coming from a place where I was a leader or anything like that, but I do know what it takes to kind of be in the trenches, whether it's both on the athletic side, the coaching side, the lifting side, and just let that drive. And I'd say lastly, did just start up Kleros Performance, which I'm really excited about. It's been a brainchild and a culmination of about 5 or 6 months of work, and really born out of a place where, like, as a coach, I've used all of these other services, and no matter what I've gone to and what I've worked with, there's always been like this massive thing where I'm like, I really want to improve this, or I really wish this one component or this one piece of how it operates would function better. So as a coach, I think I know what those struggles are and those pain points when it comes to data, and data collection, and we're just running a seamless weight room logistically. So I created this platform, and then once I looked at it, I'm like, all right, this fits my needs. This is everything that I needed to do, and I felt like it was a great option to get out to other coaches as well. So that's where it was kind of born out of.
Yeah, and Kleros, you've been hammering the pavement on Kleros the last few months, and so it's cool to start seeing some of it come to light, and seeing your brainchild almost like keep growing as it is with starting to get on social media and starting to push out like some of the different features and some of the feedback you're starting to get off of different things you're posting, just piquing people's curiosity. And like you said, it seems like it's going to be one of those things that fills the gaps where we've all used technologies and we all sit back and be like, oh, if it could do this, if it could do this, and you just said, screw it, like let's go ahead and make it into what I want, and then other coaches will fall in line.
I mean, it's just like training, right? Like as you talk to other coaches, even it doesn't matter how close their like training philosophy or their constraints are to yours, like they're going to do things a little bit different ways, or they see things a little bit different light. And so it was kind of built out of that. Like as coaches are starting to use it, they're giving me feedback, and I'm like, oh gosh, that is a good feature that I wish I could have thought of. Well, let's go ahead and integrate it. So like I think because I am a coach and it's founded by a coach, like I understand the application and I understand the ways that it needs to be able to function, but I also understand the importance of like being able to listen to the feedback and get able to make those changes as they come up.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of that might be a better tagline for the podcast more than anything. It's like it's like us calling each other 2-3 times a week, bouncing ideas off, everything like that, and then it's like, okay, how can we take this thought, run it through somebody we trust, and then get it put into practice that works in our world more than anything. And so
Yeah.
it's that, like you said, everybody, even if training is sound, right? If you use the Olympic lifting and non-Olympic lifting, right? Like you coming from a power lift background, that was still like really explosive dudes just putting a lot of weight on their back. It's not like it was just all slow grinding reps. You go to the other side and it's like all speed and how can you be fast? How can you move the bar quickly? All of that. But on both ends, neither are wrong, right? As long as they're sound scientifically, like neither of them are wrong, but it's how does it work in your own context in your own room.
And I think that speaks to a lot of, and that we might come back to this here in a little bit, but I think one of the primary frameworks and lenses that this was kind of born out of is that, we see a lot of the like the arguments that go on online, whether they're, regardless of how much credence there is to the actual conversation,
Yeah.
there's always a context where like something could be right. There's very
Hmm.
few situations where it's like, no, that'll never work, or like that's always right. There's outside of like, do no harm and like progressive overload and the scientific principles, like there's a lot of context that drives what we do. So that's the part where like this conversation, and I think conversations with other coaches make us better because you might be dealing with constraints that I'm not dealing with right now,
Hmm.
but like you still might be able to be doing something that you share with me that can make my program better. So that's
Yeah.
where I think a lot of these conversations are really helpful.
Yeah, and it is the absolutes of it, right? Speaking in absolutes all the time. I had a grad school professor, and it sticks with me. I use it all the time. And he goes around first day of class. He's like, what is fitness? Define fitness." And like he comes back to it. And he's like, "It depends. Fitness is task specific." And so my answer a lot of times when, "Hey, what do you think about this philosophy? Or what do you think about this?" And I'm like, "Maybe." Like, and
It depends.
it probably feels like a cop out answer sometimes, but typically I don't just leave it there, right? I'm like, maybe. But this is the way I would try to frame that up, or that's how I would try to work around and see if it fits. And it doesn't always fit with everything. Everything can't fit in your program. You have to have the discernment to pull out what fits your philosophy, what doesn't, what fits in your program, what you can get your kids to do. My situation is a little bit different, or is a lot of bit different than your situation. Like we have a lot less kids. You have a lot more dudes. And so we're just like, but it's how we're both trying to do the same thing and maximize who we have. And then like take our own biases and see if that's best for them, and what
what I always want to do isn't necessarily the best thing for that team or that kid. And it's how do I pull from this massive toolbox from talking to people and put that into practice to try to get our kids better on the field or the court, whatever it is.
We got down that rabbit hole really fast before
Yeah.
you could actually explain who you are. So you just
Yeah.
brought it up and like the kids you work with.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and say it and talk to us
Yeah.
about it?
So I'm at Madison Ridgeland Academy in Madison, Mississippi. We're like 20 minutes north of Jackson. I'm originally from Atlanta, just south of it, about 20 minutes. And so that's home. Still in my 404 area code and everything like that. But I've been here 7 years now. So May will wrap up year 7 for me. I bounced around in the college game, had a cup of coffee in the NFL, and that's kind of where I've been. I bounced around and was kind of took a different route because my undergrad GPA wasn't the best. I had somebody, my advisor goes, "Hey, you have to have a 2.0 at graduation." I said, "See you there." And so it wasn't the best. And then so I had to bounce around a little bit, build my resume, go get my GA done at Georgia. So I was a little bit later to the GA world. And then somebody reached out on social media and said, "Hey, there's a private school in Jackson, Mississippi is looking for a strength coach." I said, "All right, let's do it." We've been here now. Me and my wife got married here. We're engaged at Georgia, got here, and got married we moved in June, got married in November. We got 3 little munchkins. We got one on the way. And so it's life has happened quickly for us, but Mississippi's been really good to us. I have a great school. I have great admin support. I have great head coaches. And it is fun because they just kind of push their kids to me and say, "Hey, go get them ready for what they need to do." So that's fun. And just relationships that have been built through and, everything kind of happened during COVID when the world got shut down. And so everybody was like, "Hey, we can call people and talk to people." And so even though it was happening, stuff like this where we can get on a video is awesome. Everybody, I didn't, I fought the whole like podcast idea for a long time because I didn't want to be just another middle-aged white dude thinking everybody wanted to hear what I had to say. But I really do. I believe the lens we're operating from is, and the list of guests, it's not, not all of them are going to be these people that are all over social media and all over everybody's podcast. Some of them are, and if they're repeats off of others, right, it's because they're good coaches and they got something to say. But I'm thinking we can do this a little bit differently. I could be wrong. It could sound like every other strength coach podcast, and that's okay. But I think we're going to be able to do it a little differently, just with the way we think about training, the way we think about life.
I think we also bring something to the table that a lot of other people don't. And that's the fact that we had a combined starting GPA less than 4.0.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got done with my first freshman year, and I was not prepared for college in any way, shape, or form. But I had a 1.9 GPA after my first freshman year. So
Yes.
obviously you can't keep up athletic scholarships with a 1.9, and so I had to take that's why I had to have a second freshman year eventually. So I think it's hilarious that we naturally organically gravitated toward each other a little bit because of that.
And
maybe because of the shenanigans, maybe the GPA similarities, but either
probably
way,
pull together.
Here we are.
And it's one of those like pull together, talk, always going back and forth, see a lens on training, complain about the same things we see all over that happen on social media. Like you were talking about earlier, these arguments that tend to just be arguments for the sake of arguing. I'm almost completely off of Twitter because of that. I check in, like Twitter can be a great resource still, but a lot of times it's more harm than it is good. I feel like there's people out there trying to fix it, but it's just sometimes a boiled down cesspool of nonsense.
Yeah, I stopped posting on it for a little while, mostly because of football season, and I get on there and retweet our kids' offers or retweet game results, stuff like that. But then now that starting a business, you kind of have to be active on social media.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to do all that again, and I'm getting on there more frequently and posting, and I'm as I'm scrolling through and commenting, I'm like, this is the exact reason why I stopped doing it in the first place. So it's just it's so easy to get pulled into that. There's no one on there, I guess hardly anybody on there that's going to be like, you know what, you're right, I'm going to change my view simply because you commented that on my post.
Yeah.
So it's wild.
And that's what I think
place.
Somewhere I want to get with this is, bring coaches on that we don't necessarily through the social media aspect, bring guests on that it's not just an echo chamber. It's not just us sitting here nodding the whole time being like, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. That way we actually get into some conversation about what does training look like? How can it look different? Bring people in from different backgrounds. Don't just bring in the football coach and the football strength coach, and bring in people from all these different lenses: track, rugby, the sports science side, the PhD like lab side, the PhD practice side. Bringing in all these people, and hopefully we build this like really cool community that's pushing everybody in a direction that is getting training better, not just looking for clips and likes and trying to argue with people. I think me and you, what's the best way to put this? Are very abrupt with the way we like communicate sometimes with people. And I think, but what happens is on social media, right? Like you can't understand a tone through a text, and so something
Mhm.
comes off abrasive, and then everybody gets upset, and it's like, okay, well, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have a conversation. So now we can at least invite people to come have that conversation, open the door. And if not, if people don't want to come on, like, that's okay. That's fine. But there's at least the opportunity now to like, hey, let's have this conversation in a place that can push the field better instead of just arguing back and forth.
Yes, no doubt. And I think it goes back to kind of what we've kind of hinted at back and forth with like the lens and the context that we view training. So like with that, what would you say would be like when it comes to your training philosophy, like quote unquote philosophy, what are the most important things to you? What do you believe? Like what is the lens that you view training through so that anybody listening kind of understands that as we walk through questions in the next couple episodes?
Yeah, I think for me, everybody always wants to be a part of a camp, right? Everybody wants to be a part of like I don't mean this in a negative way, but like a cult, right? Everybody wants to be a part of a unit, be a part of a club. And that's all well and good, but I'm about what works. The frame stays the same within our program, but if I have a basketball, anybody that's ever been around basketball and football realize those are two very different sports to train.
They're
Um,
very different personality types
yeah,
in the weight room too.
and so like I can't be football coach Adams with my basketball guys because they would shut down, and then my basketball girls, right? Basketball girls and basketball boys get a very different coach Adams, and so it's trying to balance all of that while still getting training. I want to be data informed. Data driven is one of those like phrases that I'm not a huge fan of. I don't want to be data driven. The data doesn't always, because you can feel like crap and then get under the bar and hit a PR. You've seen it. I've seen it. Go out to run fly tens and somebody's like, Coach, I feel like crap. And then they go pop a PR on a fly, and that's like, I want to be data informed. I want to be smart with what we do. But I also want to be, we got to strain a little bit, in our high school sports. They're old enough and their training age is high enough. Like I'm fortunate, I get them starting in the seventh grade, the large majority of our kids. And so we have a ton of training built up by the time they get to our varsity sports. And now it's like, yeah, we can have that conversation. Hey, I don't feel great, but like, let's see what the numbers say. Let's see kind of how you feel. See if we can identify why you feel that crap. And if it's a one-off day, cool. Let's like make sure you feel good. But that doesn't mean you don't get to get under the bar and, go train like the rest of your team is. So I think that's a long answer and probably a very vague one. But if I had to say, we operate in a world where we want to be as fast as we can. We want to be as violent as we can and be resilient. And I think that's about, if I can get those three things done, both scientifically backed, data informed, but then also like it's okay to struggle. I think sometimes we get away from the struggle in training to a point where kids don't, we're like, we need tougher kids. And it's like, oh, we've never given them a reason to be tough. The first time they faced adversity was in the second quarter of a football game, and we've been training since January. They've
Yeah.
never felt tension. They've never failed. They've never been put in an adverse situation. And I think that stuff like that grows kids, especially young men, that stuff like that grows those kids a lot faster, I think. Could be wrong. Somebody would probably argue with me, but the textbook doesn't live in reality either.
That's why, like, whenever I talk to new coaches or talk to people, especially if like I get a question or like, whether it's a phone call or text, like I always start with, well, the textbook answer is, because those are two different things. Like like you said, there's a lot of training lenses that go in our experience that we've had, both you and I separately, but kind of collectively speak along those same lines. And even though we have different backgrounds in how we train kids, like a lot of those similar principles and a lot of those similar qualities come out in our training. And that's because we both understand, like, we do operate in the real world. Like
Hmm.
the CSCS answer isn't always going to be the best answer,
Yeah.
especially because the CSCS doesn't apply to like sixth, seventh, and eighth graders that I work with all the time. Like, good luck going in there and teaching my sixth graders that started
Yes.
2 weeks ago how to train and how to do
Uh-huh.
things.
Yeah, the textbook, I tell that anytime I go talk to like a school around here, I talk to a young coach or something, I'm like, look, you can believe all that textbook you want to, but I have a room full of seventh graders every Monday and Wednesday. I would love for you to come in and try to teach. And then like let me know how it goes. Because no, and I think Brandon Herring has talked about it some and it's pretty popular among coaches, but like that's where you learn how to coach. You learn how to coach when you get the kid that can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. And then you're like, hey, grab a bar. And then bars are over heads. You got med balls being thrown at each other. You got a kid doing a push up underneath a kid doing an RDL. And you're like, what are we doing right now? Like you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, so I think as a coach, this is my first time with middle schoolers consistently. Before this, I would get eighth graders as they're prepping for freshman year. So like usually about February, March, they'd start coming in, getting ready for summer workouts and summer football as freshmen. But this is my first time with consistently getting them younger than that. And man, the amount of things of like more so how I speak and how I give directions has
Yeah.
changed more than anything. It's like I used to give, 30-second or 60-second instruction on what I'm doing and then be able to go and give like end with something motivational or like something that I thought was like applicable for life that would apply to like consistency in training or like motivation in what we're about to do and then say go, and then our athletes would remember the workout that I said a minute
Hmm.
ago. Here I'm like, I've got 15 seconds to have all of my instruction and all my talking done or I lose everybody.
Lose everybody. Like, and it has to be almost like outlined. It's like,
Yes.
okay, here's where your feet need to be. Here's how your knees need to look.
And
Here.
even more like a classroom teacher, right? Like we talk about it frequently, like the first weeks as I'm going through our cleaning protocol, it's like we've got jump stance, squat stance, split stance.
Hmm.
And I always circle back in there. I'm like, hey, we're doing clean pulls today. Where do our feet start? And this is like our eighth grade class who's already been through it a whole semester and a half now. And they're
Hmm.
like, jump stance. Like, okay, cool. We're good. So like just like a regular teacher or a classroom teacher is going to spiral that stuff back in, like you have to with middle school kids. And I think it's like if we're always doing the things that make us comfortable,
Hmm.
right? Like if I stayed in high school forever, I probably wouldn't be able to like have those contexts now as I'm explaining things. So with this podcast, I think it's a good way for us to have, like you said, people that we may not necessarily agree with come on and talk and have those conversations, because if all we do is what we've always done, we're just going to stay in our little box and we're never really going to improve how we are as a coach.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing is like when you do pull all these people together, like that's like you just said, like that's where you grow. You know, when you have to, if you can sit back unemotionally, hear somebody's rationale, be like, okay, it makes sense. Does it work with what I want to do? Does it work with how I think about training? And it doesn't necessarily have to. Like you can disagree and both people can be doing really good things. And so, you know, moving from the high school world to the middle school world, those are two very different things. And like you have your PhD with a focus in velocity based training. If you slapped a velocity measurement on a bar with your middle school kids, like you'd have 18 machines broken in the first day.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's like a huge difference in even the way you train grade to grade, level to level. Yeah, it'd be super cool. Like you said, the textbook doesn't live in the real world. And it'd be cool to have VBT on every rack, but then sometimes it's not needed. Like I don't use a ton of VBT for a multitude of reasons, but you know, I don't use it a ton. I think it's a really good tool, but I think there's also some level to where it's like, hey, just move the freaking bar and load it up. And like, yeah, sure, it's not always probably optimal, but that's somewhere where I'm like, man, put some weight on the bar and let's go. Like, keep it fast. You know, like even the old school, like make the plates rattle at the top. It's like, I love bumper plates, but there's something like when you're, hey, make the plates rattle at the top. That's what I want. You're coming out of that squat. I want it to freaking bang off of each other and
Make
make a sound. It's like, oh,
make
okay,
the
here we
plates
go.
talk to you. Make
Yeah.
them talk.
And like, is that the best scientific answer? Like, probably not. I should probably slap some VPT on there and see what happens. But in the context I work in and in the space, it's how we make it work
Yeah.
most of the time.
Man, that's a whole other conversation that you're going to open up way too many doors. We're trying to keep this first episode
Yeah.
really concise.
Yeah.
So let's not go down optimal and science-based stuff right now.
And pull people in, you know. And so I think at the end of the day, I think that's where we're trying to go, though, is like people understand that me and you aren't always on the same page, like lock and key with everything that gets done, but we listen to each other. We pull each other into our training, our thought process, to where we understand more of the context. That way, when I call you about something, you understand the frame that I'm working with. You understand like my thought process on training. And it's like, does this fit? Because as coaches, we always can overcomplicate crap all the time, right? We can, in our head on the whiteboard, it like, you can overcomplicate everything, but is it in practice? Is it what you agree with? Does it fit what you're trying to get done? And that's where I'm hoping we can shed some light, and, you know, like we said, hopefully some people can pull some stuff from it.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know when we shot each other a text, it was kind of like that Spider-Man meme where they're like pointing at each other. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, man, I was thinking
Yeah.
about a podcast like
Yeah.
where the two of us are on it together.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing the direction it goes in the next couple months.
Yeah, for sure. So be on the lookout. I think me and Dan, what we're going to do is release a few more like one-on-one type podcasts together before we start pulling guests in. Like Dan said earlier, our guest list is extensive already. It's extensive because we haven't reached out to anybody, and people haven't told us no yet. But it's also a good thing is neither of us are too upset if we get told no. So we're just going to keep that list big. We'll have that moving forward. You got anything to close up with, Doctor?
Yeah, if anybody's talking or anybody listens in, don't expect it to always be like strict and professional all the time. Like, again, back to that like ADHD thing. Sometimes like stuff comes in my brain and I'm like, I probably shouldn't have said that, or maybe that was questionable. We're gonna have a good time because at the end of the day, like, I enjoy what I do. I think George enjoys what he does.
Most of the time.
So we're like when we talk and we're going things like we're kind of all over the place. So just bear with us. We'll get back to science and training eventually.
Yeah. So be on the lookout. Hopefully next week or two, we'll release another one when we can sync up time zones and all of that stuff. So appreciate y'all. Appreciate Kleros for powering us. And thanks for tuning in to the staff meeting.